Eglin Air Force Base Basic Allowance for Housing, or BAH. Let's talk about how much is it, how much home does that get you by price, with example homes from around the area and the top places to live by Eglin Air Force Base. And then let's finish up with some housing affordability tips for moving to and living around the Florida Panhandle. Welcome back. I'm Charlie Cameron, an Air Force veteran, real estate agent, and leader of the Military Home Team, the top-rated military real estate team serving all the bases, active duty, and veterans around the Panhandle. Let's start by looking at the Eglin BAH rates for 2023. Now, I've lived here for many years, and it's important to note that there was recently a significant adjustment upwards for BAH in 2023. So while we're hopeful that there'll be another adjustment in 2024 to get it closer to where it really should be, as a military kid, veteran, and spouse, I could say that BAH is almost never enough in any location, and unfortunately the Florida Panhandle is no exception. But by buying smart and by working with the right Military First Realtor team, we can guide you on the best ways to minimize your cost of living when buying a home. But before we get into our housing affordability tips, let's first talk about what BAH gets you in the area. And be sure to check out my top places to live at Eglin Air Force Base video, where I go into the pros and cons of each location and where military families choose to live and why. The Military Home Team would love to help you with your military housing goals. We've been in your boots. Here's how to reach us. Now let's look at the Basic Allowance for Housing, or BAH, rates for Eglin Air Force Base and Hurlburt Field. So you can see here that if you look at E1 through E4 without dependents, it kind of starts at the $2,000 range. If you look at O3 with dependents, going all the way up to O6 with dependents, it gets to about $3,000. A little bit less for O3, a little bit more for O6, but around that mark. So we can kind of bracket everything between $2,000 and $3,000 for BAH. Now, rather than look at every single one and spend forever looking at examples, we're just going to use that as our bracket and use that as two price points to look at, 2,000 BAH and 3,000 BAH, and calculate everything from there. So what we're going to do is work backwards from expenses. Here's the deal. It all depends on your unique situation, on your credit, where you live, your price range, those kind of things. So be sure to reach out to us so we can tailor this specifically to you. Of course, if your spouse works, homes become more affordable around the area, but we're going to assume for this video that that isn't the case. We can get much more accurate estimates of payments by looking at each property individually. These are just some estimates based on data and experience. So when it comes to assuming expenses, let's first talk about interest rate. I'm going to assume a 5.5% rate. At the time of this video, VA rates are in the 6s, though they did just drop half a percentage point, and they can be bought down into the 5s. I'm going to assume you have good credit and you're using the VA loan for the lowest rate, and that either we helped you buy down the rate further, hopefully with seller concessions, or that rates have dropped into the 5s naturally. And we expect the normal interest rate to be in the 5% range for the foreseeable future for the next few years. Then the other two big expenses we got to look at are insurance and taxes. I'm going to assume $2,400 in insurance. This might be a little high. Florida is higher than the national average by about 40%, and bank rate puts the Florida average homeowner's insurance at about $2,000 a year, but we typically see it a little bit higher than that, depending on the home, depending on how new the roof is, depending on how old the home is, and a number of other factors. We're going to also assume it's not in a flood zone or within a couple blocks of the water, which will make our insurance cheaper. And then for taxes, it's kind of a wonky way I came about this number, but essentially I'm going to estimate at 0.47% of market value. That's about 0.5% of the actual market value of the home. And now looking at home affordability with Eglin or Hurlburt BAH. So on the left side, that first number we were looking at, the lowest number, the E1 to E4 BAH of $2,000-ish without dependents, and the higher number of O3 BAH of $2,900 with dependents. So on the left, essentially, the E1 to E4 BAH comes out to about $300,000 worth of home. So on the left here, the $2,000 of BAH comes out to about $300,000 worth of home. That's a 5.5% interest rate loan for 30 years with a zero down VA. Your property taxes come out to about $1,400. The annual insurance we already talked about. Your principal and interest is at $1,700. So the total mortgage payment is about $2,000. On the right, we have the $2,900 BAH that comes out to about a $450,000 home with the same loan terms, higher annual property tax, in a higher principal and interest payment with a total mortgage of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance of $2,900 a month. So that's essentially how much home the BAH buys you. And again, that's assuming you don't use base pay to go higher than your BAH, or you have additional income streams or your spouse works or things like that. So let's look at some example homes, active homes on the market at the time of this video, starting with Fort Walton Beach. So we're going to continue with on the left side, that lower BAH, on the right side, that higher BAH. And you can see essentially what this gets you. In Fort Walton Beach, you might have a 1-car garage on an older home, smaller home, 3-bed, 2-bath, but still adequate. And on the higher end, you might be looking at more new construction, 4-bed, 2-bath, and more square footage. And in Crestview, where you're most likely to get the best bang for your buck, you're looking at a 4-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home with some updates. There's also some smaller new builds in this price range. And then a 4-bed, 3-bath, 2,600 square foot, almost new home for that $3,000 BAH. When it comes to Niceville, it's definitely a more expensive area. On the low end, you're looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,300 square foot home in the 1960s, but mostly updated. Technically, that's in Valparaiso. The rest of Niceville is slightly more expensive, and Blue Water being the most expensive. On the right side there, you do see a home in Blue Water, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. It does need its own renovations, but this home will be worth quite a bit more in that area after you do your own DIY remodel. You can also get new build homes in that price range, but not in Blue Water. And then I wanted to showcase one more home in the middle, which falls in the middle in price range, but it has a lot more updates, meaning Niceville is attainable for many military families. And then there's Freeport, which is even further east, a little bit longer of a commute. You might be looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,300 square feet without a garage, all the way up to a 4-bed, 2-bath, 2,000 square feet, fairly newer home. When it comes to Destin, you're definitely priced out on the lower end, and even on the higher end, you're almost priced out when it comes to single family homes in Destin. However, most military families choose not to live in Destin due to the price and the commute. And last but not least, we've got Navarre and Gulf Breeze. On the low end, you're looking at a 3-bed, 2-bath home, 1,200-ish square feet, 1997. On the high end, you're looking at a 4-bed, 2-bath, 2,200 square foot, 2004. So you really have a lot of options in this area. If you'd like us to set up a search for you from the MLS so you can look at active listings from around the area, simply fill out the client questionnaire with the link below, and we'd be happy to get that going for you. Now, when it comes to affordability as a military member or family here on the Florida Panhandle, here's how we at the Military Home Team like to approach making home buying the most affordable by focusing on what we call the big three. Number one, location. That's the most important factor. If you don't mind living in Crestview, Freeport, Gulf Breeze, or Navarre, you can get a lot more bang for your buck. Number two is the interest rate. Anytime we can lower that by using the VA loan, by buying down the rate, and in many cases our team will creatively offer and negotiate to get the seller to pay for the rate buy down, which can decrease payments significantly. We also have the option of temporary rate buy down options, which are great for VA loans because they're easy to refinance when rates drop. And then number three, insurance is a big factor in Florida. Thanks hurricanes. The lowest insurance costs on homes are going to be for newer homes, those with new roofs and windows, and those not within a few blocks of the water. Even if a home has an older roof, we can ask the sellers to pay for that and replace it before closing, which can get your insurance costs down. For more information on Panhandle closing costs, the VA buyer process, and how our team saves military members the most amount of money, be sure to check out more videos on the Military Home Team channel, or simply reach out to us. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and the Military Home Team will be standing by to make your PCS as easy as possible. Thanks for watching.